know, our guest today is one of the most incredible people I've ever met. Beautiful on the inside and outside. She makes beautiful art for everyone to see. Super impactful person in my life. And she has all the accolades in the world when it comes to becoming an artist, a muralist, and I don't know, painting, drawing, it doesn't matter. Everything. Taylor Victoria Art, the queen behind it all. Taylor Victoria is on the SuccessFlow Podcast, and I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. Taylor, how the heck are you?
Woo-wee. That was an intro. I'm good. Thank you. Great to see you, and thanks for having me on, you guys.
Of course. We're so excited. And Taylor and I, we go back, 5 years, maybe 5 years, met at BNI networking group, been part of the same chapter for about 5 years. I was president of the chapter 1 year. And then she was my succession, which blew it out of the water way better than I ever did. And she was president right after me. And if you know anything about BNI and networking groups, you got to stand in front of the room every single week. And you have to run the meeting. We've got 70 people in our chapter. And I think we were coming out of COVID when I started. And I was the president, and then you followed up after me, and we just made it so fun. That was such a cool 2 years. You made it way more fun with all your shimmying and all the things that you got us doing outside of getting out of our chairs and whatnot. So you've done some stuff for me and some projects and things like that. And just watching you grow over the years and build your business is super powerful and inspiring to see. Kind of give us a little bit of a backstory. And I'll let Phil jump in here as well, because I want you guys to meet. You did meet at our BNI meeting when you were president, and he remembers that as well when I gave a presentation.
My only BNI meeting, you were the president, and it was a great experience. You ran it so well. And I was so excited when Stephen brought up that you were open to joining the pod. So it's so awesome.
That's so rad. Thanks. I'm glad you got to experience the tornado effect.
That's a good way to describe it, but there was order. I would say it was ordered chaos. It was great.
Play does thrive with a certain amount of structure. So as long as we got the two, I think it's a good balance.
Yeah, I noticed that was one of your key values was play, which I love. You don't see that one as often, and I can't wait to dig a little deeper into that.
Yeah, jump in, kind of give us some backstory, and we could talk a little bit about BNI and how it's exploded your business, but where do you come from? Where were you born? Where did you come from? How did you even get into art? Was it from when you were just a very young little girl, or was it something that you learned to love later on in life?
Yeah, thanks. I always say I've been artistic since I came out of the gate. So my parents will tell the story that when I was in a high chair before I could even speak, they'd give me, paper and some crayons, and I'd sit there and color for literally hours, which if you know anything about children or have them of your own, it's like very not alignment with developmental practices. Typically kids are throwing crayons on the ground or eating them or just learning their surroundings in that way. And I always just had this zeroed in concentration and love of being able to sit and create. I think it's just always been a very meditative practice for me, even as an infant. So I grew up creating. My parents also would go in and check to make sure I was still breathing in my bedroom, very, very extroverted and very social. And then I have this side of me that I can just sit and create for hours. And so growing up, it was anything from just rummaging through the art cabinet and supplies and, making any type of craft possible or painting, drawing, and never saw that as a potential art or a career path. I'm from the Midwest, so I'm from outside of Chicago, and great roots, great family, and happy where I was raised. And also there's just a mindset there that you don't become an artist or you don't make it as an artist. It's a very safety and security type of environment. And so my next best thing was I went to school to become a kindergarten teacher. Love kiddos. I've always been attracted to that type of play and young spirit. And spent a lot of years nannying. So that felt very much in alignment that I could bring my creativity to a classroom setting. So I actually moved out to Phoenix, Arizona, and went to school out here. Graduated high school in 2012. And then about halfway through my college career that I went through a difficult time and just I know how to draw. So it's my way of coping was whipping out the sketch pad and just sitting there and drawing very meditatively. And at the time, this was before the whole mandala coloring book craze came to light. And so I didn't know what mandalas were, but I started drawing one after the other, these very geometrical symbol designs that were just repetitive and very soothing for my psyche. And it wasn't until I kind of posted online and showed on social media that people were like, these are like epic. Like, you're doing these freehand and you should do something with them. And so after sophomore year of college, I went home, and that's when unexpectedly my whole art career had its conception. So I began taking my mandala geometric symbol designs and had them screen printed onto yoga and clothing wear.
Oh, sweet.
And so it was a blast. Like, and my mother helped me through this whole process. And that was like, talk about taking a creative mind and being like, yeah, I'm going to start a business. So like, blood, sweat, and tears of created an LLC, a website, got the bank account going, found screen printers, had catalogs, looking through like what type of clothing option, was trying to do more sustainable. So like bamboo options, organic cotton. And then last 2 years of college, I still got my degree. Like, I loved learning the information and getting my degree and becoming an early education teacher. But I would be at yoga and art festivals on the weekends selling my product line and doing henna tattoos and selling my art prints. And it's just like, I feel really blessed in my whole journey that it's like the pain points have been the catalyst for even more enriching of creativity and like my stepping stones to the next part of my journey. And the difficult part birthed this unexpected art career. And then after I graduated college, I wound up going out to California and doing a tattoo apprenticeship. And that was learning more like tribal designs and symbolisms that then fed into the type of clientele I attracted after that. And that also had its own pain point and a lot of internal struggle that I went through. And
now, did you go to California by yourself, or did you have friends or family out there?
I went out by myself. I had gotten connected. So there was an artist community between Phoenix and LA that I merged myself into during my college years. Very free spirited. So I was a lot of like road tripping back and forth and meeting people. And I actually went to Grand Canyon University, which is a small school, but I was like from the Midwest, and I have my little Honda Civic out in Phoenix, Arizona. It's like, there's a world I get to go see and explore. And I did that. And so I had an opportunity arise. And so I packed up my car, sold off whatever like little things that I had, and drove out to California to take on this whole new apprenticeship. And I learned some phenomenal techniques and skill sets in that time frame, and then got connected with people that would later really start to kind of elevate my career and my experiences. And there were mural opportunities that came of that. So I was able to start with like bringing my painting into a more large scale arena. Stephen knows a little bit more of my personal story.
Well, I was just gonna ask you, how is that transition from drawing on a sketch pad to now tattooing on someone's arm? Like, it's got to be, obviously the creativity's there.
Oh, it was
but
epic.
how does that? I'm sure it was. Was it different? Was it hard to kind of pick up?
I didn't realize you were actually tattooing.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So I did a tattoo apprenticeship, and the first part that you learn on are like pigskin or orange peel. So you kind of get that like porous texture and learn.
Or your own thigh. Did you go that route? And
my ankle is done. It looks like excuse my language, a shit show on my head. The boxer sandal, you look down, it's like, what did you do to your ankle? And I've gotten like 3 tattoo removals done on it, and then I just like left it. So I'm like, it's a story at this point. But so I got to tattoo some people, and I loved that experience. It was like, talk about a meditative experience, or something about the gun like vibrating and you're focusing, and it's just
you have to be focused. Experience. You're like zoned in. You can't be thinking about anything else, right? Like, because you're responsible for a piece of art on someone's body. Like you mess that up, you're gonna feel guilty about that, right?
Which was the cool thing, was I was very well respected and brought in because my drawings had been shown. And when I was doing my mandala drawings, there was no pencil, no rulers. Like I swear, like channeling just like some perfectly symmetrical designs that were coming through, that I had like this unhinged confidence. It's like, yeah, skin, like, let's go. Like, let's just put the ink on a person. And being able to exercise that, like, there's something very surreal about trusting what's coming through and like the final product landing, and that there's like a surrender and a freedom in that experience. It's like, I can't quite put it into words, but if anyone can find that euphoria, like, find it. It's wonderful. creating or writing or whatever it may be. But I definitely could feel that experience. And then, yeah, so being able to tattoo was wonderful. Unfortunately, there was a lot of personal stuff that came up into that experience. It wound up being a pretty toxic and abusive situation, and one that it was not for me to continue. And I still have a little grief around, like, I loved the process of tattooing, but I feel like my mission and when I get to serve as an artist has expanded with my art forms that I'm currently doing. And so, yeah, when I was in California, I had clients come to me that the wife is Taiwanese and the husband Norwegian, and they have this shop in Costa Mesa, California, and they wanted something very aesthetic and beautiful, but like incorporated their culture and could be put under their walls in their company. And so because of my training in the tattoo realm and like learning different tribal designs and symbolisms and going down that whole route of artistic study, I was able to now infuse that into my painting. So it was like definitely a journey of drawing to tattooing to then being able to paint large scale.
That's awesome.
And then eventually from that journey, I made it back to Phoenix and I've had my own, the journey's never linear or like just straightforward, but so I've had my ups and downs with it. But this past, that was a decade ago, but these past 6 years have been full time with painting as my only source of income, which is like a freaking dream.
Yeah, you've been killing it. You got to be so proud. And you go to your website, TaylorVictoriaArt.com, and you go to your portfolio and you can see these incredible mandalas and pieces that you've done. So anyone that's listening, definitely check it out. But your rise to success has been awesome to see.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And a lot of that, like talking about the success portion is, as Stephen mentioned, like we met in BNI 5 years ago and I was still, finding my footing of what does it look like to be an artist? And I had this whole creative mind, but, how do I serve as a business leader in an industry where like there aren't a lot of mentors and knowing how to incorporate like the business skill set, which is important if you want to have a sustainable, like go at it, which I do. And so getting involved in BNI and having the business education and being able to be with, leaders like you, Stephen, of different industries and learn from one another has been so pivotal. And then being able to have referral source too, to actually rely on a community to like help give legs to your dreams is amazing. It's been a fun journey.
You are speaking my language with the meditation piece and how you talked about the ideas coming through you. And I love that. Also from the Midwest, and made my journey out to Arizona a little bit before you. But when I found meditation also in a very challenging low spot in my life, making that connection with my family back in Missouri, when they saw all the positive changes coming through, it was kind of like, you're doing what? Meditation. It's like, it's church and, some community and, hard work is really how things get chalked up back there. Making that transition, and I know that we talk about environment changing a lot. Can you double click on and talk to how you found meditation? Art in itself, when you're creating, is meditative itself. But with those ideas coming through you, can you kind of go a little bit deeper on that for the audience and talk through kind of what your process looks like and how it's impacted your art?
I'd love to. I will say the one thing I want to give credit to is I have a mother who did encourage a lot of like alternative spirituality, we'll put it, in terms of growing up in the Midwest. Like it was very unheard of. And I'm grateful for that. So I like came into this lifetime as like this open vessel. I don't know how you want to word it, but like as a little kid, I, would go into worlds of imagination or I feel like have meditative experiences that were allowed and accepted and like fostered in the household that I was brought up into. So that I'm really grateful to. For me, there's like, I think meditation is just like getting clear and clean and open enough to listen and to like, and when we can listen and be connected to spirit source, whatever you want to name it, it's like whatever our gifts that are meant to come through or have just like that much easier of a channel to be able to be birthed through. And so my process is, as an artist, like I can spend like 12 hours a day or plus on my own, just in creativity. And like, if you don't have a connection or relationship with yourself, like that can get super dark. I mean, I get why artists have like dark art. Like it's like, I so understand that. And so for me, there's a commitment to making my insides as beautiful of a garden as possible so that I am whatever's coming through is like from a nourished state. And so a lot of that is like, knowing my internal dialogue, like having a relationship with self, being able to meditate and drop in and listen, and then create from that space. A huge part of that, though, too, is creativity lives on the right side of the brain. And the easiest way to access that is through play. So like, there's a structure in terms of like being able to have breathwork practices and meditate and be constantly on a path of self-development so that our, best selves can come through and what we're producing and offering the world. And then the best way too is like to change your state. And that is through play. That's why like I think kids are so magical and get it way better than us adults, because they like know how. That's like a form of being in hypnosis, of being able to create the reality that you wish to create. And I mean, we think we know what the world is around us, and it's like we're just copying and pasting what the adults before us have told. And like if we can wiggle our way into those like other realities that we have access to, like anything's possible.
Are you always dubbed? Are you always the most fun in the room everywhere you go? Like do you always
I better be.
I
hope to make the most fun.
Yeah. I mean, is there ever a dull moment? It's awesome. And you're always a breath of fresh air. Every time you talk to anybody, a big bright light, and you talk about inner child, and you do workshops with kids, you do retreats and different things that help with rejuvenation and wellness and meditation and all that. There was an Instagram post I saw. So anytime you see it raining, is it pretty much like 99% you're running out into the rain and having some fun out there? Or do you shelter up? You're always like, it doesn't matter what's going on around me. You let that water roll off your back and you just be you. And it's really awesome and refreshing to see, because so many people would rather just sit in the house and be dry.
Yeah. I mean, there was a chance to go play and dance in the rain. We gotta, like, that's we'll alchemize our situations around us. It's like, you got to use it, it's like you have a palette or a paint, like use it, the rain, the gloom, whatever, it's like all a part of it. So but to say water running off the back, that's the biggest compliment I could have gotten on this podcast. Cause I know, Steven, that's like your go-to life framework.
It's the be a duck mentality. It's like controlling the controllables and the things you can't control. You just got to let that roll off your back, man, and just keep pushing forward. And so speaking of that, and how you like business and learning, and obviously being an artist and a muralist, and you're very creative, but there is a business side to this. You've got to drive revenue. You've got to manage your expenses. You've got to know how to read a profit loss statement, at least to some extent, in order to get bank loans and different things that you may need to expand and scale. You got to think about potentially hiring somebody, right? And so how do you scale your business? So what have you learned the most since you started full-time 6 years ago, to maybe what was potentially a hobby to some people, but you knew it was going to be bigger than that, to now a full-fledged business where, hey, we're pulling a lot of revenue here and we're doing a lot of really great things around town, but also outside of Arizona. What have you learned the most about scaling as a one-person business for the most part, as you've grown your artistic endeavors?
Yeah, I think the best advice given was actually through our mutual buddy, Matthew Gardner, of like,
oh yeah, Gardner's the man.
If you make Gardner's the man. He knows
Phil knows Gardner. He's in he's in our group. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the homie. Shout out to Matty G.
He'll be on the pod someday.
Get him on for sure. It's like if you're making X amount per hour, like you should not be doing anything that's like a less hourly rate than that. And I still fluctuate back and forth. Like the difficult thing for me is these are my babies. Like anytime I'm creating, it's like my name is stamped to that. And it's almost like a mother that like, of course, wants to spend as much time with her child as possible, and like not wanting necessarily others to raise it up. But there is, like, for scaling purposes, getting outside help. Like it's hiring people that I can help assist to be able to do some of the color blocking portion. Or if I know that my time's be spent towards work, like delegating some of my home tasks out and hiring that out. So a lot of it's just like time management and knowing where I can offload some of those other tasks elsewhere so that I can really be focused and know what like my main priority is to do, and that's to create and bring in revenue for sure.
We talk a lot about on the podcast. We use the term business athlete and talk a lot about protecting the asset, making sure that we are that we're healthy, clean, and have the energy to show up and produce, to create results and art and whatnot. And I noticed that you co-founded something along the lines of this mission in the wellness space, along with creativity, called Rising Retreats.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about how that came to be and what impact you're trying to make?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year we decided to not go forth with putting on another retreat, and last year was our first one, and it was beyond fulfilling and successful, and hope to have flavors of that make its way out into the world again here in the near future. But what a girlfriend of mine did was combined both of our gifts, and she's wonderful in the naturopathic realm of things. And I, of course, have like a huge love of creativity. So we created a week-long curriculum and brought a group out to Costa Rica, and were able to lead them through a week experience. And a lot of that for me was like, I love to create for clients, and I can produce art all day long, and that is a passion. But what makes it so sacred and sustainable for me is like the connection to creativity that I have. Like, I think it's one of the most sacred relationships that we all have access to in this lifetime. Like, I don't believe anyone's not creative. And there's like studies that back that up, which is why, again, going back to the inner child and having those childlike practices are so key and important. But my goal on that was to be able to rekindle people's relationship with creativity. So not about producing anything or having some type of product come out of it, but like creativity impacts our finances, our relationships, the way we show up, the way like what we decide to put on for clothes every day. Like, it affects every area of our life. And my goal is to be able to ignite that passion and have a positive impact in the way that creativity is so linked with our subconscious mind. And, even our beliefs can get really rigid and structured. But if we can bring creativity in the way that we framework and see the world, like, again, we become limitless. And it's like, we're here for such a short amount of time. Why would we not harness that and like see what our potential is?
Bamboo banger right there. Bamboo.
Yeah, we call
banger.
Lines like that bamboo bangers, because we talk about the bamboo shoot and how you the seed goes into the soil and it doesn't grow for 5 years, but you're out there in consistency watering the seed, and then 5 years later the bamboo shoot goes up 90 feet straight in the air. And so we're building the foundation, right? But you're so spot on, and it's so powerful to talk about creativity and how everyone has creativity. And so often do we get lost in the work that we do that may not sound creative. Maybe it's a back office job, or it's a server at a restaurant or whatever, but we all were a kid once, and we all had passions and love and things that we love to do. Like, for instance, what kind of went dark for me for a long period of time as I was building my business was writing. I loved to write when I was a kid. I wanted to be an author when I was a kid. And then just in the last couple of years, getting back to writing and just sharing, whether anyone reads it or not, it doesn't matter. It's more of a personal development thing for me. And getting back to that writing has instilled so much creativity and has allowed me to be stronger in so many other areas of my life, being disciplined and consistent with that. And so I think you're spot on with that. So many people get stuck in the proverbial hamster wheel or the rat race, and you're just like, I'm an adult, I'm an adult, I'm an adult. And there's a line my dad always said is, don't ever grow up, just do grown up things. And so it's a really neat,
I like that.
Yeah. So it's a really neat reminder for those, like, when you're so focused on adulting and all the things and the stresses and things that come at you. Number one, be a duck. Number two, I think you nailed it. Bring back the childlike tendencies that you had and start doing some of that, whether it's sports, which I know whenever we talk about sports, Taylor, you just go sports ball. I know you're not the biggest sports nut in the world, but that doesn't matter. Sports aside, if that's where you find your creative outlet, get out there on the field or the basketball court. But I think it's a great reminder. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a study I want to share, because when I heard of it a couple of years ago, it was mind-boggling. And it just really cemented a lot of this, which is there was a study done, and it was performed by NASA, actually. And it was taking a group of children and testing them at genius level for creativity. And of that pool, I think it was like 1,500 children that they used. But of that pool, 98% of them, of these 5-year-olds, tested at genius level for creativity. And they followed them throughout the years. And it was like crazy. By 10 years old. Yeah. And so each incremental year, it was dropping down. By the time the same group was in their 30s, they retested. Guess how many of them were at genius level for creativity?
Probably less than 15.
2%.
Jeez, that's crazy.
So it's like, we were all of that, like, it's like we come in with that and then like, where does it go? It's like, it's structured or it's taught or it's conditioned out of us. And so I just think like that's such our birthright. And to be able to get back into that, like the world has so much potential and we get to birth that through by connecting.
Yeah, I got a lot of ideas on that I probably won't share on the podcast, but I will say that you did something really cool. And I know you work really well with children, and you did something really cool with a mutual friend. Phil also knows Nate Dominguez and the family. Their daughter, what is she, 9 years old? And you went and did a mural in her room. Tell us about that experience, because you both were glowing in the pictures that we saw and the videos that you shared with all of us. What was that like, and what does that bring to you?
Yeah, still one of the best days of my entire life. Ella Jo, I adore her. Yeah, she's 9 years old. And Nate came to me saying that they wanted to have a little mural done for her bedroom. Actually, they just wanted the quote. So every night, Nate has said to Ella Jo, dream big and dream about being. And then she answers back, happy. And it's like this beautiful phrase, and putting it above her bed. It's like, great, we can do that. But like, why don't we create a whole mural out of it? And he's like, deal. And she wants to be there for or be a part of it. I'm like, great. She's gonna be part of the entire process. So I went over and we had a full day of it. So I started her off in a meditation where we visualized, picking the exact right colors. And then we visualized going to Home Depot and that everyone there was going to have a smile on their face and it was going to be a positive, smooth experience. And the car ride would be safe. And so we picked out the colors together. She had gone through the whole design process with me. We had like a consultation over it. And then we came back to her room, sketched it out, and then painted this mural. And we cranked it out in a day's time, which was epic. And Ella Jo's reasoning for that was girl power. And I was like,
nice.
Yes. So like, just for the two of us helping together, It was a pretty, good sized mural on one of her walls. And it was so much fun because anything that I did, she wanted to do herself. So it's like, all right, we, if I had a ladder, she had a ladder as well, and was on the other side of the room painting. And it was just so life-giving because it was like, honestly, it was a dream come true for little me, like a version of me that would have loved to have had that experience and then being able to reach back and give it to her. And I just think the Dominguezes are a great family to begin with. And this Ella Jo has just the best personality, is so creative, going cute places. Oh, she's amazing. So yeah, being able to do that was wonderful. And I love being able to bring kids into that process because again, it's like, if we can keep nourishing and fostering that, then hopefully it won't dwindle as quickly or if at all, which would be ideal. Yeah, that was a great day. And then we went to Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift's movie came out. And so we got all dressed up and put glitter on her face.
That's my daughter. My daughter's the same age as Ella Jo, and she's a Swiftie, and she's, it's all over the place. She's singing now, and she's doing all this. She does all the art stuff. Like, she colors, but she's also on the softball field. Yeah. I showed you a couple pictures she's done. She's very good. Yeah. But she's now doing Little League All-Stars in softball. So we're not sure which direction she's going to go. Maybe she'll do all of it. Who knows? Just like we were talking about, Phil, in the few episodes back, the Renaissance human, she might just be a polymath.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. Love it.
Keeping it on the show business train, but taking it back a few decades or a number of decades, you left some breadcrumbs on the website regarding Gregory Peck and Cary Grant. And I think Gregory Peck is that To Kill a Mockingbird?
Yeah.
Was that
so funny. I've seen him in quite a few movies, but then we watched that in school, and I think he's so like suave and handsome. And I remember being like, thinking he was so attractive in that movie, but he was like playing like a dad character. Like it wasn't really appropriate to like be like over him. And I remember my classmates being like, what? Because I grew up watching those old movies with my mom. Like it was just, or definitely my generation was not watching those movies.
That era is so awesome. Like I'm with you a little, like those throwback, there's just like a wholesome energy. It was like a different time, and the acting's totally different than what we see these days. But anyway, I was curious, like, so it was watching with your mom, but please keep going. Like what draws you to those types of movies and expand? So
both my parents were theater majors from UW-Madison, and they're a trip. Like they got married in 1981 and their wedding was broadcasted all over Madison, Wisconsin, because rather than what was traditional in the Midwest to get married in a church or have a traditional wedding, they decided to make their wedding like a massive play. It was Shakespearean. So they walked down the aisle with swords, and they like men were in tights and garb, and it was like in a theater. So it was like a full blown experience that everyone had, and their reception was like tap dances and full-blown choreographed routines. Like people that were in their wedding were choreographing for 6 months ahead of time. So that's just a little like, context on my parents. And so there's definitely creativity of where I come from.
That's the bloodlines through and through.
It is. And then I loved watching the old movies with my mom. It was like Friday night, go out with friends, or stay home and watch black and white Cary Grant, Gregory Peck movies, Audrey Hepburn. Like that was more my lane. And like one of my all-time favorite movies is Roman Holiday with Gregory Peck and Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. No, it is Gregory Peck. Anyways, one of the two. And I just like, even though I'm a tornado and talk fast and high energy, what I love about that era and that time period is they really took their time. So the acting is like, it's all in the subtleties and the space in between that makes their characters. And I think it's wonderful and fascinating. And I grew up around acting and dancing and the whole theater scene. So I love that. Good find on the website.
Yeah, same here. My parents were adamant about us being exposed to all of that, and theater, and that portion of the arts was a big part of my childhood and growing up too. It must be a Midwest thing.
Maybe that's great.
So is that if you had to pick a decade to go back and live in, would it be the 20s or would it be the 30s?
So it would be like the 60s.
50s, 60s is your vibe?
Absolutely.
Well,
I remember in high school for prom, I dressed up as Audrey Hepburn. Like everyone else was wearing, it was trendy, and I had like a tiara and white gloves and the white pointed shoes. I mean, it was like my whole bedroom was like 1950s, 60s Hollywood theme and rhinestoned out. And I would go there.
Yeah, I could see you in some bell bottoms, some pink glasses, holding up the peace sign, hanging out with in the 60s and all the rock and roll stars and whatnot, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's tipping into 70. I do it all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's not limit ourselves. Let's just go back to all the eras. And
Phil, I've never asked you, what decade would you live in?
Dude, this one's so tough. Paul and I talk about this all the time, and I think it's a toss up between the Wild West, like being a lawman out when the West was getting settled, and there's something really awesome about that. And then like there's also something to like the Roaring 20s with all the change that was going on, industrial era, like it was such an exciting time. Like what we're seeing now with AI was happening back then with industrialism. And I don't know, it's probably between those two, but I always go back and forth depending on what movie I'm watching.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Steven?
Man, I'm probably not as cool as you guys, but honestly, I think the 90s. If I was like a decade older, the 90s, the music was awesome. The movies were, they don't make teen movies like that anymore. There was no real internet yet, but we were just on the verge. And so like, it's kind of like if you knew today only if I knew yesterday what I know today, it would be a wonderful life. And it's like, if I knew the .com was coming, I would have invested in everything, and the whole 2000s would have been amazing. But I don't know. I think the 90s, just the way sports was coming into play, there was no internet, there was no trash talking, like the Michael Jordan era. If I was a decade older, I think that would have been, if I was an adult and having a family in that, that would have been awesome. And then being old and, older now with grandkids and not knowing what the world's turning into, that would probably be where I'm at now. But I don't know. I just think the music scene is what really gets me. I actually play like Green Day, Incubus, all this stuff all the time. And then old school Eminem, Dr. Dre, like all that stuff. Like just listen to that music. It just brings me back. It's just so great.
It felt simpler. Yeah, it was like right before things were tipping into what they are now.
Yeah.
And it was a much simpler time.
On that note, I was curious, Taylor, while prepping for this and like talking about mandalas and whatnot, have you looked at all at Terrence Howard's lecture at Oxford or in Joe Rogan at all about the tree? It had me going into the tree of life, and which is technically a mandala, right? Like it's the expansion. It's a mathematical sequence, and we've all seen it, but you don't maybe not know. It's called the flower of life. Sorry.
Yes.
Flower of life. And a lot to do with sacred geometry, which went down the rabbit hole on, and like how the hexagons and helixes all fit together. It's super beautiful. But Terrence Howard has some pretty out there information that he's challenging in regard to mathematics, sound, and art. The periodic table. I was curious if it had crossed your radar at all. If not, I'll be sending it right after this.
Send
pod.
it. There is a part where it's like the mathematic equations, and once you get numbers in there, like, there's so much. No, there's like, that's what's so fascinating about it is like, there's so much history and science and like studies done on all of this that are incredible. And, like mad respect for people that like gone into that. And I'm so interested in hearing it. And also some of it just like, like numbers, math.
Well, the fact,
I don't care about it as much.
I mean, the fact that you were freehanding that stuff and like perfect symmetry is incredible. I mean, it's all geometry. Like it's all like, I mean, that's math. Yeah. It's just, it's not like the 1+1 stuff, but it's the angles and it's the, how do I get this a perfect circle and this angle here and that? And so it matches up when it's from the top and the bottom, it looks like it's perfect. And to freehand that stuff and just to have that gift is pretty wild. And I saw one, just another way of showing how much you care about people and how awesome you are is there was a video. I'm not sure if you knew her, but it was a gal that was, going through cancer and chemo and whatnot. And you did a mandala on her head. And I don't know, that was just really neat to see and inspiring to see and just give her that confidence going through that tough time in her life, and so I think that's just really cool that you get those opportunities to brighten someone's day through your artwork.
Thank you. That has been the beautiful part of, like, I love being able to create, but and it's like the connections that get to be developed through that are beyond what I could even imagine. That was a really sacred time to be able to, it was taking mandala or henna paste, which I use like an all organic, natural, safe for the skin henna paste, and was able to do like a mandala crown on her head just to symbolize like putting love and nourishment into that, that journey that she's been navigating. And the other fun was done quite a few like the pregnant bellies and being able to kind of bless that space, which is exciting. Yeah. It's been such a gift of like people that get to come into my sphere as a result of creating, but it's been, the people definitely make it what it is.
So what's your favorite painting, drawing, murals, henna? Did you love it all? Do you have a favorite? Like if you had a project, what would be your go-to?
I do love it all. I definitely, because I love challenges, I love the larger scope work, if I'm going to be completely honest. So I've done quite a bit for some, commercial corporate spaces. I got this next month doing one for In-N-Out Burger, actually, which is fun. And being able to, but then local businesses are that much more satisfying too, because then I'm able to see the impact directly in my community. And but being able to do those like large scale pieces of art where I'm operating boom lifts or scissor lifts and being able to spread the paint that much wider on the outdoor canvas space is phenomenal. But I also just like really love it all. If I have a paintbrush in hand, it's like the impact is never small, even if the canvas is small. It's like I know that I get to make a difference, whether it's painting a dog that someone's family has seen pass on and be able to, keep that legacy alive, or if it's painting inside someone's home a mural, or for, like little Ella Jo, being able to have her see that every day, know that it impacts her mood and the way she feels when she wakes up and goes to sleep. And then, any type of interior, exterior mural they're all fun. They're all like get to be gifts of creation. So it's hard to like pin down. Larger is fun because it's more of a challenge, but they all have a sacred place in my heart as well.
What's next for Taylor Victoria? Are there any projects that are coming up that you're open to sharing about? Is there anything kind of on the horizon that's gonna be changing? What are you looking forward to?
I've not told anyone this yet, so you guys are like fresh off the press hearing it.
Only on the SuccessFlow Podcast.
So I have a really big passion for writing as well, and I've done murals and canvas art and have done retreats and lead people in workshops, and like I hope to keep expanding and always growing in that. One of my all-time favorite loves has been writing. So I've journaled every day since first grade, and I, with my creativity, feel like I can create worlds in my head. And there's also been a big self-development personal journey that I've been on for the past decade, and especially concentrated past 6 years. And I feel like there's a lot of value and nuggets and wisdom and things that I'd like to share. I just signed on with a woman who's going to be mentoring me to write my first book.
Amazing.
So I'm going into and like we're having a structured type of a It's going to be over the course of a 5 days immersion experience. And she's going to help me write my book. And it's going to be a lot of bringing my creativity, and I'm going to keep some of it, keep some of it, private. But it's going to involve art and creativity as well, and some storylines that I've been playing with. So the next big creative thing, which is more for me, is going to be through writing a book, which I'm stoked about.
That's awesome. All right. So is this a book, like a fiction book, like just creativity out of your mind? Is it an educational book for art, or like what kind of describe what it's going to be?
Yeah. This has been the difficult thing, because I'm like, I feel like I have so many books and so many things I want to write. Yeah. Like I want to write a memoir. I want to write a book on creativity, and like a book basically on the retreats that I've led, so that people can have that experience from home. I'd love to write children's books. I'd like to write books on self-development. This one that feels like closest is, it's a fictional book, and it's going to be a fiction book, and it's going to be there's going to be lots of threads of creativity in it, and secret worlds coming to life. And I'll have some of my art woven throughout the book, and it'll be very whimsical and magical, and lead people into their own inner child through just the reading of it. So that's incredible. You'll have to find out.
You're very good at writing. Last year we featured you in the storybook, and you shared your writing, and I was like, oh my God, like you're a very good writer. And it was like, you could visualize the story you're telling through your writing. You're very good at it. I'm calling it right now. Whatever you put out there, whatever you write, it will be a movie that my daughter will watch with her daughter. I'm calling it right now.
That's the goal.
That's what's going to happen.
Oh man.
Okay, so that's going to happen. So that's incredible. I'm happy for you. I think it's going to be a really cool experience. So you have to definitely keep us updated on when that gets released.
Well, thank you. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking like, a world that, like the Harry Potters and the books that like really
that's right where my mind went.
That's the desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, leading up, so as we kind of close up here, I did want to ask one last question before Phil's going to ask you the most famous question we have on every episode. The last question I'm going to ask you, so you do this for a career, you do art, people hire you, they say, hey, I want this cool mural, or hey, I want this wall done, or whatever. And so that's like, quote unquote, your job. Even though you love it, it's your passion, you're doing its purpose, and you feel fulfilled with that. Do you ever come home at the end of the day and do it just for yourself? I know you just talked about writing a book, and that's a lot of it like for yourself, but do you still come home and be like, I'm just going to sketch some things out just because I want to, or I'm going to paint something just because I want to hang it at my house? Or are you like burnt out because you've been doing it so much for so long now for other people?
Oh no. Hell yeah. I create art for myself
all the time?
I burn out.
That's awesome.
Like that's important. So I have right now a canvas in my living room that I work on for a client, and upstairs is a personal canvas. So I like home always has like paint spread out, or I will do a mural and I will come home and I'll be beat, but I'm like, that wall needs to be a certain color. So like every wall in this place in my house has been painted at least once, but sometimes multiple times. And that's just like a way of keeping the energy moving and flowing. And I believe my environment shapes my mindset and who I am. And so I'm constantly creating for myself, and that allows me then to keep creating for others, or it doesn't work.
Very cool. Love it.
So, yeah.
That's a perfect segue into the question, which might be, I think we have a really good feeling for what this is, but want to hear it from your words. This is the question we ask every guest. What is the definition of success to Taylor Victoria through your eyes?
Ooh. I think it's play. Like if you can remain playful in life, which that is not dismissing that life is hard and painful and has its challenges and will knock you on your ass from time to time. But if you can keep the energy and the spirit of play and be able to like look at life with renewed eyes and wonder, and be able to like sink back into this space of unconditional love and peace that we all have access to, like you've done it and you're doing it. And like, it's a continual practice, but to me that's success.
Amazing answer.
I think you just named and titled the episode of the podcast, Turning Work into Play with Taylor Victoria. It's going to be awesome. Where can everyone find you? We'll include the links in the show notes, but give it a shout out there as we wrap up.
So my website is taylorvictoriaart.com. Admittedly, that one's harder it's been more of a challenge to update that regularly. So if you want to see more consistent updates, it's on my Instagram page at taylor.victoria.art, or on Facebook, you can find me at Taylor Victoria Art as well.
That is perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. It was so great to get to know you better, and we'll look forward to staying in touch here. We'll be back at you next week on the SuccessFlow Podcast.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you, guys. Woo! That was fun.